It's time to go back to rewind.
Can it work? Can it happen? Especially with today's Capcom crew. With the many fan arts and roster put togethers that fans make. You thought, maybe it might have happened by now. At the end of the day, Shonen Jump vs. Capcom can indeed work. And I just hope to do better. Possibly, we may even remake this video in the future. We never know.
Shonen Jump versus Capcom doesn't work. It's been 1 year and 3+ months since I released my very first Fighting Vision Unleashed HD Remix episode. 1 whole year and a few months. And I changed my stance on the concept that I still would like to see. You see, the Fighting Vision series is meant to deliver a full concept. That's the essence and purpose of it. To see modes and menus like this as we discussed in the video, chances, scenario, gameplay conception, and of course, the big part of the video, building the roster. A build the roster segment. In fact, it sounds a little too familiar, don't you think? Those ripping off motherfucking YouTubers. Anyway, when I really looked at this, I started to think, yeah, you know what? This roster's looking a lot like shit. So let's rearrange this mofo. Because the last roster effectively proved why this concept really doesn't work more than anything. But before we rearrange, we must re-explain. Okay, let's start with the most basic things to talk about. We got the meters on the bottom. No, you can see friendship and effort there. We'll talk about that in a second. That's a cool mechanic that got lined up. Of course, we got the health. We got the little bar on the bottom. And of course, if you look a little closer, we got an assist-only character, which we discussed beforehand. Let's get rid of that dumb shit. We don't want any of that nonsense. You know what? This shit's old as fuck and it looks like shit. Let's redo it.
Fight.
Welcome to the new and improved gameplay concept. Redoing the gameplay concept is not a regular thing we would do for roster rearrange. But since this was the very first Fighting Vision, things need to be replenished. That being said, let's continue on to the revised gameplay. I'll start by explaining the gauge on top, the impact gauge, and the gauge at the bottom, not even a gauge, gear moves. Now for example, let's just say you do the regular inputs with Naruto. You do a Shaman, but then the impact button, you actually do the wind style Rasen Shuriken instead. Think of it as an extension. In fact, the impact gauge has its own dedicated button on the controls, just as the gear moves does. But the gear moves function a little different than the impact moves. See, those are moves you can only perform once and it's replenished when the impact gauge is full, which of course you gain that gauge by damage or doing damage. Now, what gear moves are meant for is to increase movement and just more potential overall to the characters you're playing. So basically the function of it is to allow anime characters to have as much moves as they need to perform in the game. So that's why there's an impact move, impact gauge, and impact or gear moves. And you're wondering right now, I'm doing a close-up here of the blue gauge and red gauge. What's the difference? You see, the color of the gauge represents what motto the player believes in. This is the motto system. You see, very quickly, effort victory and friendship are motives of Shonen Jump. However, I mistakenly thought bravery was, but I decided to keep that and add victory. So what does this all really mean? Effort is the basic meter build, no chip damage at all, and grants the player an extra meter. Friendship has increased damage for assist, access to special team up supers, fast red health recovery, and supers cost way less on a team of 2 or 3. Bravery meter builds faster at low health. Can access jump mode, which is X factor in a way, which increases speed, power, whatever. But that mode drains meter and impact gauge, and when it's empty, it goes away, one-time use. But certain characters can access special forms in this mode. You may imagine who. And victory, of course, is crazy. It could increase the impact meter, which is usually just 1 meter, to 2, but it only gives you 3 super bars to perform your supers. And the non-team supers do extra damage and a very rare chance of getting back up with extra health. Pretty gimmicky, huh? Of course, you could always let me know whether or not it's gimmicky or not to you in the comment section below. Be sure to respond after this video is over with hashtag #FightBack. Before we move on to the roster, I have to show you one more thing, which is what is on screen right now. And that's the controls. Like I said, Impact in Gear Moves has its own dedicated button, and once again, for example, Naruto does regular Rasengan with L, M, or H. There's a Rasen Shuriken with the IM button, and another, maybe an Air Rasengan with GM. But without further ado, it's time for some Rival Essentials. This may be the most controversial roster rearrange I've done thus far. If you paid attention, you would have noticed some of these characters beforehand. We are starting off with the most essential rivalries, mostly to establish the rival theme moving forward. It is the only mindset to handle a Shonen Jump versus Capcom roster. I've attempted this before and did it poorly. Let's begin to rectify this with the first 6 characters, starting with Ryu, Jotaro, Akuma, Kenshiro, and Chun-Li and Hitomi Kosugi. There's going to be a lot of what I deem to be unrecognizable characters. To make sense and clarity of these choices, I'm going to provide highlights of these characters as we flow by, starting with Cat's Eye. Who are Cat's Eye? These 3 sisters right here, going from left to right: Ai Kosugi, Hitomi Kosugi, and Roy Kosugi. Now, the main character here to note is Hitomi Kosugi, as that's the sister we kind of stick around throughout the story the most. Now, what's interesting about Cat's Eye specifically, it's quite a few things actually, is that it does predate Street Fighter, which is interesting. So why would Hitomi, her sisters, rival Chun-Li? There's some interesting parallels to make here. Real quick, Chun-Li is an officer of the law and seeks revenge for her father. The Kosugi sisters are art thieves that steals to find their missing father. You see, not only is there a similar relationship to the fathers, but also the classic officer versus thief mix-up. This is why I consider to be a perfect rivalry between Shonen Jump and Capcom characters, and I'm sure there's going to be even more rivalries coming up, like the main ones. Edward Falcon versus Monkey D. Luffy may seem odd at first, but once you consider the goals in the story, it'll come together. Power Stone is a legendary treasure that can make any dream come true, only seek by those who believe it. Onepiece is a treasure that can make you a pirate king, and only seek by those who believe it. Who's to say that Falcon and Luffy won't cross paths onward to their destination? And what about Strider versus Naruto? Comparison besides the obvious, though it would be a missed opportunity not to add Strider considering his origins as a manga character. Date Masamune versus Zoro may be one of the more obvious put-togethers. That's with the reason. Sengoku Basura's Date has a 6-sword style, and that versus Zoro's 3-sword style is a match made in heaven sure to be. But there's even more of a coincidence between these obvious rivalries. Only a fan of both Sengoku Basura and Onepiece will recognize both Zoro and Date share the same Japanese voice actor, Kazuo Nakai. If Shonen Jump vs. Capcom is to be, Be sure to ask Kazuma Kai which side is he on. He might just have a hard time answering that question. Anyway, we have yet another perfect rivalry, as well as a unrecognizable Ingrid from Capcom Fighting Jam / Evolution versus Medaka Kurakami from Medaka Box. If you're a deep sea weeb, you will easily recognize Medaka. However, if you are a cool, chill person with style, you won't. That's okay. Check out these elements that make them mesh well. Besides the obvious schoolgirl getup, both of Medaka and Ingrid have an immense power to them. Both of them seemingly overpowered. Both of them just hate non-do-gooders and seemingly perfect. Hell, even have the same kind of girly attitude. And that's about it. It's time for the rival extension. Let's talk about the 3 core rivalries here before we talk about the 3 or more questionable ones. Batsu versus Yusuke is a given. Both are high school brawlers with an attitude and projectile power. Dante versus Ichigo. Both can access a power through bonds by blood that knacks mix-ups and versatility. Wayne Tang from Power Stone versus Sanji from One Piece. Another Power Stone versus One Piece mix-up. 2 chefs brawling it out. And you probably noticed Dimitri versus Dio for such a blatantly obvious reason. It hurts. How about some more Sengoku Basara reps? Seriously, this is probably one of the only versus Capcom games they'll probably get a lot of reps from. Take a look at Sanada Yukimura, a rival of Date Masamune, as we already discussed his character and why he's in. But what about Sanada? Him versus Gintoki from Gintama seems like a right fit for me. And what about Kasuga as well? Kasuga versus Yorichi. Now, they don't particularly have the most things in common besides, I would think, a personality clash. I think their personalities will clash and fighting styles will clash in the game rather well. So that's why they're most likely rivals for me. And nothing else, I swear. But who is that character who's supposed to be a rival to Trish from Devil May Cry? This is a very niche character that I don't expect even a now modern anime fan to know. This is Arsh's Nei from the manga Bastard. Now, Arsh's Nei is a half-human, half-dark elf. She is a powerful sorcerer, a boss character in her own right. She's even called a Thunder Empress. And that's for a reason. She has a wind style and lightning attacks. That's just a simple way of putting it for the sake of this damn video. She is one powerful character from the Bastard series and one I really hope to see, and that brings more female representation to the table. And she is from a very niche series, but that's what you're going to be seeing. As the next character we're going to be talking about is also from a niche series, at least nowadays standards. That's Cobra from Space Adventure Cobra, or just Cobra. Now, Cobra here is a very classic Shonen Jump character. In fact, his own story states that he had to surgically alter his own face at the beginning of the story to where you may have seen him in his blonde hair to live a normal life until, well, that isn't the thing anymore. But he's mostly a space pirate and goes on pirate adventures. That is really the most simple way of putting it. So, due to that space aspect, I put him against a rival towards Hayato, which hopefully won't be low as tier as fuck in this game. And now there's Kinnikuman who's left, Shojuro Kinniku. Now, Kinnikuman has a wrestler, and it's pretty obvious what he might do in this damn game. And might even be one of the more powerful Capcom grapplers of all time if they implement it correctly. And if you're wondering if you're completely new, no, that's not his face. That is a mask. This is his face. So, and if you just want a little trivia on that, they actually put that mask on him when he was born on his planet, his home planet, as a sign of tradition. You may recognize Kinnikuman or his son if you grew up in the US or somewhere where they showed Ultimate Muscle. Or maybe you can play the Ultimate Muscle game where it featured his father. So that's where you could possibly recognize Kinnikuman outside of Japan. Otherwise, it'd be his father, Shojuro Kinniku, representing the series, versus Valgus from Power Stone. They're both wrestlers, so it makes absolute sense for them to happen. And of course, we see Kenshin and the Onimusha character Tenkai. It's time to wrap this shit up. Now, where to even begin? This is your final roster. Now, why would we add another blaster character without the main guy himself, Dark Snyder? Dark Snyder has just a wide variety of range and just moves. He is the perfect fighting game character, but he's also the perfect boss character too. That's the way he was designed. He's the ultimate wizard after all. But what about all these other characters? Does this look like a satisfying roster? I think, for one, it does. It makes sense. Let's add some more sense. What about Roberto from Rival Schools? Why the hell would he be in any other versus title except for when he faces Captain Tsubasa? Gee, I really wonder why I added these two guys together. You would never know. You would never ever know. What about Akira versus Sakura? Their brawler type of styles actually match very well. Nah, you could say one's more powerful than the other, but that's not the spirit of a fighting game now, is it? What about Hayo versus Sasuke? Now, I'm more so thinking of the lines of a Demon Hayo versus Sasuke, and Demon Hayo is a bit cooler anyway, so yeah, that Demon Hayo. I know Breath of Fire fans are gleaning with happiness right now, knowing that they're getting some representation with Ryu and Nina. Now, it depends on which version, right? From which incarnation. So you're gonna let me know in the comment section below which one you prefer. Right now, Nina's is at Breath of Fire 3 versus E from Black Cat. Now, they're mostly together because they both have winged states they can go into, or already winged. That's mostly the reason, but I thought that'd be a cool matchup regardless. But man, look at this final roster. It looks so good, doesn't it? And it's balanced, and balance is an important thing. And you're probably wondering, why isn't he in there? Well, it's because of balance. Let's discuss. So, Shintone, you're probably saying, why in the fuck did you not add Goku in the roster? Well, it's simple. He fucks up the entire roster balance. This is one of the most crazy and controversial things I'm doing for this roster, and I'm pretty sure you noticed it when I first talked about Luffy and Naruto. Goku wasn't on it, and nor Goku should be on the base roster, period, unless he's a secret fighter alongside of Sora. Now, I already discussed this before in the last time, but I'll say it again. I think Yuvok from Bleach should be the final arcade boss for this game. He's a perfect challenge to both the Capcom and shonenjump. What is a roster rearrange without a DLC talk? That's right. DLC talk about a game that doesn't even fucking exist. That's how we do things. This is the life, the Shintone life. You may recognize some of these characters here, or one of them from earlier. Ryu Saiba. An interesting thing about Ryu Saiba is he has the same creator as Cat's Eye, Tsukasa Hojo. And I personally like Silly Hunter, so it would be nice to see him in his assassin. Oh no, not assassin. My bad. His mercenary action in his game. And speaking of mercenaries, that's the type of rival that we need for Ryu Saiba, isn't it? And look no further than Rolento. Yes, to fight me is to fight my army, Rolento. Rolento may not be the first character you think about when it comes to a versus shonenjump character, but he's definitely fits the bill in this case. What about Aizen from Bleach versus Oda? Oh no, silly you, not Oda from Onimusha, Oda from Sengoku Basara. Seriously though, what the fuck were they thinking making the same character? I know, listen. I know he's based off a real live person, but give me a fucking break. Tell me which one you prefer in the comment section below, but that's the one I've chosen here. And of course, another My Hero character is a given, so I chose Toga. Now, not many people are gonna like that choice, but her psycho villain antics versus BB Hoods, I think it kind of blends well. But you could always tell me what I missed, and don't tell me some dumb shit like Virtual Joe versus Deku. That's a dumb matchup, and you know it. Tell me what I missed in the comment section below using the hashtag FightBack, with your roster. And we'll continue this next time in the community fights back. My name is SHINTONE. Until the next confirmation, oh man, I'll be seeing you. Peace, guys.
Don't you want a rematch?